Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Gukarastvandakaro Vai Rukarastvannivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururithyabhidhiyate Sadashivasamarambham Shankara Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So I'll just pronounce the prayer verse just on my own, and then kindly after that just repeat after me so that you have.
Sir, the ready-made has Lexus ending from 492. The Lexus, it's on the door. It's actually blocking my. I'm not able to get into my car. I have to pick my kids. So sorry for that.
Okay. So, Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padam Bhujanmane Savilasa Mahamoha Graha Grasaika Karmane. Now we will pronounce it together. Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padam Bhujanmane Savilasa Mahamoha Graha Grasaika Karmane. Okay. So what we will do is to distribute the books at the end of the class, and just a request to people who are not here online that please make sure that you send me your physical address so that we can send it to you. In particular, this book by Swami Shuddhabodhananda, which we just got printed here, called Panchadasi Chapter 1, I'd like everybody to have it. So this just, I have plenty of copies of that. And I think because it is written by someone from exactly the same sampradaya and so on, I think you'll find it useful, even more so than Swami Swahananda's book. Swami Swahananda's book will be for all 15 chapters, and you should keep it for your library. But just for the first chapter, this is really very good. So please make sure that you let us know, and then we can send it to you. And for those of you that are here, then we will just finish the distribution at the end of the class. Okay. So we really started the teaching of the Tattva Viveka with the third verse last time. Shabda Sparshadayo Vedya Vaichitrya Jagare Prithak Tato Vibhakta Tat Samvit Aika Rupat Nabhidyate. This was the third verse. Just 1 second. Just want to follow the English translation. So, as you know, the English translation was that in the waking state, the objects to be known, namely sound, touch, etc., differ from each other because of being distinct. their knowledge separated from those known does not differ because of being the same. So that's the verse. So what we saw was that the whole analysis of our life, the analysis of exactly how we are going to, this is the intelligent way of living, as the title of the whole course shows, is to have a structure of what is happening. What exactly is what's the truth about my life? Where am I going? How do I get there? So we have seen this example that unless you know that those instructions very clearly, otherwise you are wandering. And many of the Vedantic teachers say you are sleepwalking. That's a very good analysis, really. Because in a sleepwalking, if you look at the sleepwalking phenomena, you're doing something, but it doesn't seem to make sense. From what I hear, I mean, none of the people in my family had that problem, but we've heard about it, that people can just wander around aimlessly, and then they have to be sometimes being brought back into their beds and so on and so forth. And in a way, what the Vedantic teachers say is that, believe it or not, our life is exactly the same. And you get up in the morning and you're busy, you're not sure what to do, and then there's some duties that you have to do, so you follow that. And then it's the day's over, and how it's just doesn't really have a symphony to it that you can follow. Even if you're not able to follow it, you're not sure of exactly what the path is. And then by the time then you get old and it's tiring, and then life is over and you start all over again. So what the important thing is to know exactly what the goal is, and whether or not you are able to follow the goal, the progress towards the goal is another matter. That's a separate issue. But at least the structure of the whole thing has to be very clear. And so that's what it's really all about. So if you follow the structure, the basis of the structure is that the whole life is a false superimposition on yourself, the reality. And so one has to see what the nature of the superimposition is, and what the nature of the assumption in our life is. We were just discussing it in the Saturday morning class, where I introduced, I'm not completely finished doing that, it's a very beautiful line of thinking, so I'll just summarize it for here also. So I think that in this course, I will try to pick out some of the important concepts of Vedanta, because this is still an introductory course, but it'll be a good touring of the important concepts. So this is one of those important concepts that we were talking about, this word that Swami Maheshananji commented on when the Karika, the Mandukya Upanishad Karika was being taken up, called Vyavastha. And in describing the Vyavastha, I had painted a picture that if you have something which has really happened, like I gave the example that I found a very big lizard in my garage, huge lizard. scary looking thing, really. It's not just a nice one color, it's like multiple colors. Its tail is like 6 to 8 inches tall. It's just the tail. It looks like a snake, but it's not. I've seen him before, so I wasn't that worried. So that fellow has disappeared in the crevices of the garage, behind some cupboard or something. So now, what is called vyavastha is applicable to him, meaning that you can postulate and ask questions. How did he get here? Where is he now? He or she. Does he have kids? Is he going to stay here? Or is he going to disappear? Really, although to this day I don't know what has happened to him. I keep the garage door open thinking that he will go away, but probably more are coming in when I'm open the garage. So I'm not sure. This is all part of vyavastha. It's all part of vyavastha. And the thing about it is, interestingly enough, our attitude and approach towards life is that there is a vyavastha. How was I born? Why was I born? Where am I going to go? What's my next life is going to be? Exactly like that. We're like lizards trying to figure out what are we doing here. So this is called vyavastha. Vedanta says your life is not a vyavastha. Why not? Because if you make a mistake about a rope being taken to be a snake, then the vyavastha-like thinking is out of the window. Why? Because you cannot say, how did this snake come here? The other person says, what snake? There's no snake. He says, no, there is one. But the question is, how did he come here? And actually, this is what happens. You can postulate this, that supposing you wrongly attribute a rope to be a snake, and then you get scared and you go into another room. See? So you're not investigating at that point. You just go into another room. And then you tell someone there is a snake in that room. And the other person says, really? Where? So then you say, I don't know how he got there. I don't know if he's still there. Is he slithering around? Is he a dangerous snake? All that is a vyavastha. A vyavastha means that there is some kind of a system, some order, some cause and effect. This is called vyavastha. So if the other person says, okay, I tell you what, he says, I can't go into that room, it's very dangerous, you go. So that person perhaps turns the light on or takes a flashlight or something, and he sees that there is something which is kind of like a rope that is sitting there. Or sometimes, there's I have it in my backyard, these hoses. They look like, and really I have to be careful. I have to be careful early in the morning because, it's dark. And you step out, here's the thing, you can always say that you take a rope for a snake, but if you take a snake to be a rope, then you've got a worse problem. Even if he wasn't going to bite you, if you put your foot on it, he'll say, ah. So supposing you don't want to investigate it, the other person says, this is, so he says, was it on this corner of the room? He says, yes. He says, that's not a snake, it's the rope. So the person says, no, but the thing, I'm not so convinced. Where did he come from? It's called vyavastha. The person says it's not there. You can't ask questions like that. With that background, we can say that Vedanta says, your life is not a vyavastha. Not a vyavastha. Because there is an appearance of limitations, duality, plurality. Yes, there is an appearance, just like there is an appearance of a snake. This topic will actually come in more detail in this verse number 3 and 4. And so there is an appearance. But it is not, it is just an appearance. It doesn't have, it has some kind of a reality. I'm not saying that you are so stupid that you are just imagining things. You're not imagining, there is some kind of a reality. But this reality is really not the thing you think about. It's not something. So this is what happens, you know. We get so serious about problems in our life. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? This, that, or the other. And so this is giving more importance to the world than it deserves, because it's not. It just kind of like frightens you. You know, like one of those kids that have these rubber scorpions in the bed. And it should frighten you. But you should really just say that your kids are never going to put a real scorpion. No matter how strange they might be, they're not going to put a real scorpion. It has to be a rubber scorpion. And so the Vedanta also says, okay, get scared a little bit, it's okay, get concerned about things, and you know, but really not really. And if you just stare at it, as I said, that it does not matter. Whatever happens, happens. So what? These kinds of attitude things, I think you have to give a lot of importance to. Lot of importance to. They are words in gold. Doesn't matter. Let it be. And at first it just seems like, you know, it's just not real, because things are bothering me and how can I not? But really, if you just persist in it, ultimately you will soon discover that really nothing matters except for you, the very Brahman. It doesn't need to matter. You are what you are. You're complete. So, this means that our approach to life should not be based on vyavastha. This is a very important topic because all of the other schools of thought look upon the life as a vyavastha. We're going to discuss this in more detail in the Mandukya class, so I won't spend any more time here. And perhaps it might come later on. Certainly in the other chapters of Panchadasi, this is all taken up. And so this is a very interesting thing, because when we discuss the other schools of thought, which could be either Vedic or non-Vedic. Vedic means Sankhya and Yoga, Kapila Sutras, and so on and so forth. These are all Vedic thoughts. And non-Vedic means Buddhas, Jains, and more recently Christians and Islam and so on and so forth. You look at all of them, they all want to explain the life as a vyavastha. And so we don't have any contention with that. Because if we also look upon it as a vyavastha, then we can say, you are wrong, I am right, or I am wrong, you are right, whatever it is. But imagine if somebody who's saying that, you know, how did this snake come here? And was he born here, or is he just came in? We'd say, no, there's no snake. This is no, but what I really want to know is, what's the history of this snake? So we say there's no history. There's no snake. So you see, there is no real contention. It's not like saying, I think it was born here. And he said, no, I think he could not have been born here because I would have seen babies by now, and so on and so forth. You know, I think I was telling you this. This is interesting, that we have this infestation of flies in our home that happens every 2-3 years. And the first time it happened, what happens is you see a fly. This is the truth, I'm telling you. You can ask my wife. This is I'm not making this up. So you see one or two flies, and it's very interesting. These flies are big size flies. So you say, how did it get here? And then you say, oh, somebody must have kept the door open. You know, we are very careless. You should always keep the door closed, this, that, or the other. Anyway, done with. Then you see another fly, and another, and another. So now you say, we cannot keep the door open that long that the flies are coming in. And really, I mean, I've gone through this. And then I found that the darn flies are actually they are born inside the home. And then somebody had figured out how to do it. So you have to take a flashlight to all the corners. And in one corner, you will see a dark spot. And can be dozens of flies that are born there. And this has happened 3 or 4 times with us. Recently, just like 3-4 months ago. And this time I couldn't find it. So, and now I don't want to kill the flies also. So I have this system, which my granddaughters make fun of. So I have this plastic cup, okay, a plastic cup and a flat piece of paper. I cannot have a glass cup because if I put it on the glass, that might break. So I have a plastic cup, and I chase this guy, and then I put the cup there, and then I slide this paper behind it, and then put it like this, and I ask somebody to open the door for me. About 3 months ago, I did this about 40 times.
How many you caught?
I caught all of them. I think I may have killed one because, you know, he just accidentally went over that. And everybody says, just kill those darn things. But those flies are too big. Ants I have to kill. They're like 200-300 ants. So there's no way you can do that. So you just do a puja in the morning and say, you know, please forgive me. So the question is that we do not have a contention about how they got there because it never got there. And this is all we will study all of this. So going back to the basics, that we need to see that there is just a superimposition, a false superimposition, just like the image of a snake on myself. I am the one that is giving the reality to the superimposition. Just like a rope is necessary to give reality to the snake. Without the rope, there is no snake. So the length of the rope is borrowed from the rope. The undulations, the number of curves is borrowed from the rope. The color, the size, the thickness is all borrowed from the rope. But there is something more than that, which the rope doesn't have. You can't ask the rope and say, how did you get to be so dangerous? He says, what are you talking about? I don't understand what you're saying. So similarly, the Atma it borrows the reality from the Atma. Sat, it borrows. Chit, it borrows, the world. Ananda, it borrows. Everything it borrows from it, but makes it into a big shebang. And once you inquire into it, it just disappears. And the inquiry takes sustained inquiry. And it's not an easy, quick inquiry. But Vedanta says it will disappear. And so don't spend a lot of time saying, how did it get here? What is going to happen? This, that, or the other. It's not there. So this is the premise of Vedanta. So it's an aropa, aropita vastu. Aropita vastu means that it is a superimposition upon an anaropita vastu, which is Atma. So this is the line of thinking that we have to follow. as we do this. So there, we now start to analyze it. And here, one thing I would mention when we analyze this, that the method of analysis which is being given, which is that the things that are changing have to be a superimposition. And things that do not change, the thing, only one thing doesn't change, is the substratum on which the superimposition is taking place. So this is a distinction. So here, another Vedantic principle to keep in mind, this is what is called lingam. Lingam. So lingam means a strong hint, a basis of enquiry is called lingam. So the beautiful example given in Vedanta, that if you're living in a village, your main wealth is perhaps in cattle, in cows, buffaloes, and so on, and some farming. This is what you don't have money, you don't have big houses or anything like that, may not even be electricity, but the cattle. So you get up in the morning to check on the cattle, and your big milk-giving cow is not there. Has disappeared. Now you say, oh my God. So you're living in the middle of this field, and now they're all directions. So what this fellow has to do is to do analysis of how to look for this. So the hoof marks, in case the cattle will probably generally not do that, it has to be stolen. So you look for footprints of a human being, and especially if it was raining and a little muddy, then you're really lucky because you can tell what the footprints are, which directions it is. At least it gives you some idea it's coming from that direction, that's the village you have to go to investigate, and so on. So that is called lingam. Or even just a simple signpost when you go towards the freeway and then you are going towards Gilroy. So you have to look at signposts for Gilroy. That is a lingam. So lingam, so for example, Shivalingam. So Shivalingam is also your thought process of discovering the presence of Shiva with the help of certain things. It's called Shivalingam. So in here, this is a completely, has no form, a formlessness of the lingam is the lingam for Shiva, because the formlessness of the Atma is what you have to really understand. You have to follow, you see, look at this. You have to follow the train of thoughts towards your formlessness. So if you're thinking about form, you're going in the wrong direction. Going in the wrong direction. And this is exactly what we do in our life. We only follow forms. So what am I supposed to do? And that person said this to me, form. And sukha dukkha, form. And our mind cannot even discover the formlessness that I am, which is the lingam. So here, just to close off the topic here, the aropita vastu and anaropita vastu, which is the very basis of the verse number 3 that we are studying, okay, is a lingam. The lingam means, how do I start to do tattva viveka? What is the premise on which my my search should begin. It's not as though you're going to be completely done. Aropita vastu, anaropita vastu, okay, finished, okay, now goodbye. I think I got it. No. No. It is just the start. It's just like the farmer, just you are going in that direction and you keep on following it. And hopefully, if you have a dog, that's even better. You can, because they have such a good sense of smell, they can also go with you. It's called lingam. So this approach in verse number 3 is a lingam. The lingam is based on the fact that please see things that are separate from each other are in one class. So separate from each other means that you have forms, and forms are separate from their solidity, their sense of touch. It's a completely different field altogether, separate from each other. Form has nothing to do with solidity or liquidity. And that doesn't have anything to do with the smell or aroma or movement. They're all different, all different. So here, I don't know how, I forget to what detail these things are given in the, I'm just going through, I just look at 7 or 8 verses and then, but hopefully it'll give a complete summary of it, but just in case. So it's very interesting how the shrishti of the whole, how the shrishti meaning the very creation of the whole world is done. And so here Ishvara has created these 5 main aspects of the world. And so though that is touch, or not even touch, so exactly, so if you can just follow this, so here, the sound, the world consists of sound, then touch, shabda sparsha, then form, rupa, then rasa, taste, and gandha, means some kind of aroma, smell. So these consist of the 5 Panchamahabhutas. And so this is all given in great detail in Tattva Bodha. So on the page number 8 of the Tattva Bodha booklet, you will find Panchikrita Mahabhutaihi, etc. Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat. All of that will be given in the Tattva Bodha. So in this Srishti, look at this beauty of the Srishti. These are how the world is made out of, 5 different aspects. And also your internal mechanism is a one-for-one match against the external. So for example, rupam means the form. So how do you know there is a form? Unless you have eyes. So the design of the eyes is given. And so, and the interesting thing is that the outside things are not me, but the organs that I have to contact with them is me. And one very interesting thing is that when it comes to my physical body, it is both it and me. There's a dual function which is very confusing. Because normally you should say whatever you see is not you. You can even see your own, you can even feel your own sense organs. In the very famous, very beautiful text called Drik Drishya Viveka. The very first verse says, Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik Tad Drishyu Tak Driktu Manasam. It was a very interesting thing that Rupam Drishyam, the form is to be seen, and the seer is the eye. But then the eye also becomes the seen. How can it become the seen? Because you can say, my eyes are not seeing very well. And I've got something in my eye. So the eye also becomes seen. Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik. Drik means the seer. Tad Drishyam Lochanam Drishyam Driktu Manasam. Because your mind says that I think I can see my eyes are not working. That's a conclusion. Then drishyaha dhivrittayaha. The mind also becomes a drishya. So in all these cases, there is a duality. There is a duality. There can sometimes be a drik, sometimes there is a drishya. Sometimes there is a drik and so on. So drishya dhivrittaya sakshi drigeva natu drishyate. But only the sakshi, which is you, the consciousness, jnanam, samvit, which will come in a minute. That, you see, look at this. Other things take on a dual, they have a dual nature, but drik does not have a dual nature. So they are reflections, pratibimba, but you are the very bimba. You do not have a dual relationship. So this is what is called jnanam. Anyway, so coming back to this, so, to finish off this, so essentially the whole creation is in the form of outside things and then inside, where you are looking at it through your indriyas. So now we can summarize that in the waking state. So this is what verse number 3 says. Sabda sparshadayaha vedyaha vaichitriyat prithak. They are all different from each other. Where? Jagare, in the waking state. And what is the distinction about the waking state? What is peculiar about the waking state? One can say, well, I'm awake. That's the peculiarity. No. We have to define it much more tightly. The peculiarity of the Jagrat Avastha, of the waking state, is you cognize things with the help of your sense organs. Whatever cognition occurs must involve your sense organs. This does not happen in the dream state. Dream state, there is no, all your sense organs are asleep. Your eyes are asleep, but you see things without the eyes. Your ears are asleep, but you hear things without them. It's a very beautiful thing to see that how in the middle of the night it is so dark, but you can see the sun. You can see things very clearly. Amazing. What a creation. So that is a distinction between, which will come in the next verse. But at this Jagara state, so Sabdasparshadayaha Vedyaha Vaichitriyat Jagare Prithak. So those are all separate from each other. And Swami Maheshanji points out that this distinction, this separateness from each other is in two levels. One is that what is what is cognized as a form is totally different from what is cognized as a sound. Totally different category. Then within each category there are millions of subcategories. Rupam has so many different, tall, short, and black and white and colors and so on and so forth. But they're all distinct from each other. That's how we live. We are able to see the various shades of color, various shades of smell, all distinction. So the distinction is the hallmark of things that I see. They're all different. Another thing next, and let's proceed on, is that we don't, we don't cognize unless we have the knowledge of the cognition. So what do you mean by that? Do you not have the knowledge of the cognition? So really speaking, what we are seeing is the antahkarana vritti, the change in my mind which says this is blue, this is white. And so it is really the white knowledge, blue knowledge, rupam, rupa jnanam, sparsha jnanam. I don't care whether the thing is there or not, but if I have to cognize it, I must have the jnanam for it. In fact, the mechanism is, this is what Swami Dayanand used to say that so eloquently, that if it is not the case, if you see an object directly, without going through the filter of your mind, then you'll never make a mistake. Never make a mistake. What we do, so what happens is you're not seeing the object, you're seeing the image of the object in your eye. In that translation, mistakes can be made. Either you're not clear about it, or or another thing is that for your knowledge, then just the appearance is not enough, software is involved, samskara is involved. He says, oh, it's the same person that I saw yesterday. Otherwise, it is you just see the same person, you see someone and you don't really have any connection. So, anyway, to summarize, you have the various vritti jnanam in cognizing the differences in your life. And now, it is the same jnanam which is the various vritti jnanam. Same knowledge. So you have white knowledge, you have floor knowledge, you have ceiling knowledge. They are the knowledges of the ceiling and whiteness and are maybe different. Vrittis are different, but it is the same knowledge. And the knowledge is always fresh. It's not as though you got carried away with the, you got colored, the jnanam got colored by the ceiling knowledge. Now it's a different knowledge. No, just like, for example, you have room space, you have car space, and you have cup space. So yeah, in terms of the upadhis of the cupness and the car and the room, yes, it has some differences. But without the space being there, none of these differences will be there. So therefore, your jnanam remaining the same becomes different jnanams. without really becoming different, it appears to be different. So this is an important thing in Vedanta. This is another important concept in Vedanta. This is called Vivarta. The Vivarta Karanam. So the Vivarta Karanam is that one that appears to be different without being different. Just like the golden ornaments. So the golden ornaments, yes, they all have a different shape, different utility, different appearances and so on. But so the gold becomes a gold bangle without changing its all goldness. The space is capable of becoming a small space, big space, a rectangular space, all kinds of different shapes without changing itself. Similarly, the Atma, the Jnanam. And here Swami Vidyaranya chooses the word Samvit rather than Jnanam. The same word, really, the same meaning, but he chooses a different one. Swami Maheshanji comments on it. And he says the reason is that, when you think about knowledge, you always append knowledge of what? So when you say knowledge, you are now waiting. In fact, you can say this is my knowledge, as though I am different from the knowledge. And in fact, this is the problem. We tend to view consciousness not as my swarupa, but as my property. You look at the blunder that the scientists are making. Blunder, huge blunder. They're going in the wrong direction. That this is consciousness is a property. It's some kind of a thing that I am possessing. Not understanding, and this is exactly what we're going to be studying, is that it is not a property, it is the very vastu. It's kind of like when you say the meaning of the word Brahman is big. The meaning of the word Brahman is big. So when you say the word big, you immediately think about big as an adjective. So when you say that is a big mountain, wow. And then you say that is one big fly. Like these flies that are born in my home. I'll invite you all, please, next time you come in and help me. And 40 of you each for one fly. You can say big fly. So the bigness there is a adjective. In Brahman, big means the noun. It's how big? Infinite. There's no limit. There's no object that it is attached to. Not a mountain. You're not a mountain big. You are big. This is Brahman. So the consciousness is not a property. It is you. The very you. And so here Swami Vidyaranya has elected to use Samvit. Samvit as the word. Because, why? Because as Swami Maheshanji pointed out, just to leave your thinking away from, you say knowledge. My knowledge. So knowledge of what? Knowledge of nothing, just knowledge. And then a very beautiful thing. So for example, this is above the knowledge of things. It is the very content of the knowledge of things. And it is the very content of the ignorance of things. Both knowledge and ignorance, it is above that. Like, for example, you can say knowledge of English. I have knowledge of English. Or you can say I have ignorance of some language, Punjabi or something. And so, see, look at this. So when you say, you cannot say that you are ignorant of Punjabi unless you are conscious. Uncontested consciousness, which is samvit. So samvit is above the knowledge or ignorance of things. The whole world cannot be without the fact that there is samvit, 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 samvit. And so it can lend itself to knowing, not knowing, knowing the rupam, not knowing the rupam, rasam, rasa, shabda, sparsha, all of them. They are all differentiated. But the basic knowledge remains the same. Remains the same. Okay, so this is the Jagrat Avastha. So this is the lingam. And the knowledge, the very samvit is formless. It is formless. It is the very nature of existence. And there is no vyavastha for it. You cannot say when did the knowledge, was it born? You cannot say that. It is never not there. Never not there. You were there before you were born in this. You are that before you were born in this form. And it is not something that can be killed. As Bhagavad Gita says in the second chapter, na jayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavito naya bhuya. You cannot kill it, you cannot do it, because it's not possible. You cannot kill space. Even space is nothing compared to this samvit. So this is the distinction between anaropita vastu, which is unchanging. Again, from the dishya viveka. Na, what is it? Rupam dishyam dochanam dik vastu diktu manasam dishyaha dhivrittaya sakshi drigeva natu dishyate. Na udeti na astameti esha swayam vibhati. Na udeti means it is not born. Na astameti, it doesn't disappear. Swayam vibhati, it is self-existent. It doesn't need any support. The only thing that you can mess with it is you don't understand it. You have wrong ideas about it. You don't get it. And even when you don't get it, it's not as though it is not there. You are already free without realizing it. This is the samvit that was talked about in the third verse. So now we extend it. This is the Jagrat Avastha. Let's start extending it in various directions, almost like testing it. Okay, so the next one is the fourth verse, so which goes into the Swapnavastha. So let's pronounce it. You can just follow after me. Number 4. Tatha swapnetra vedyam tu. Tatha swapnetra vedyam tu. Nasthiram jagare sthiram. Sthiram jagare sthiram. Tadbhedo tastayo samvit. Tadbhedo tastayo samvit. Ekarupa na bhidyate. So tatha swapne. Tatha swapne means just like in the dream also. So dream also, the things that are different are superimposed, and the thing which is not changing is the substratum on which all of the various things are superimposed. Tatha swapne. And then atra. Atra means that, in this particular situation. Vedyam natu. So now there is a tu. Tu, let's look at the tu. Okay. Anyway, let's finish all of the words and then I will go into the more details about the tu. So tatha swapne atra vedyam tu. Tu means however. However means a completely different situation. Nasthiram. They are not lasting. They are not lasting. The things that are known in the Swapnavastha are not lasting. So we'll have a lot to say about this thiram, and especially the insight from Swami Maheshananji. Amazing. Nasthiram. In Jagare they are sthiram. So that's the distinction between Swapna. In Jagra there is the Vedyam Vastus are sthiram. In the Swapnavastha they are not sthiram. Tat bhedaha ataha, therefore that distinction between the Vedya Vastu and Samvit Ekarupana Bhidyate. So there also the Samvit does not change. So let's look at the entire English translation. So is the case in the dream. Here the known object is not lasting. On the contrary, it is lasting in the waking state. Therefore, there is a difference between them. But as far as the identical knowledge principle of both the waking state and the dream state, it does not differ. In other words, the samvit remains the same. Samvit remains the same. Okay. So this extension of the samvit now goes into the dream state. Okay. So a couple of some subtle points here. So this is not there in some of the other books, but Swami Maheshananji props up a question. Props up a question from an objector. He says, sir, I can see in Jagrat Avastha a difference between knowledge and the objects. So I see the objects, but I don't really have, I have a knowledge of the objects which is different from the objects. But that doesn't happen in the dream state. So because in dream state it is all knowledge, 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 there is no object at all. Isn't it? So there is something totally different about it. So there it is pointed out, no, that is not true. In fact, in Vedanta, we don't make that distinction. Why not? Because in Vedanta, all appearances of something have to be taken as an object. It's a separate matter about the reality of the appearance. That's a separate matter. But the moment you see something, like for example, supposing you see a snake on a rope, until you analyze it, the snakeness has some vastuness to it, it has some reality to it, until you negate it. So just to say that there is only rope as the real thing and not the snake, that's not true until you analyze it. Both of them are for real, as far as you are concerned. So similarly, in the Swapnavastha also, you find that there is in fact an appearance, so therefore you have to take it as an object. And so therefore all the distinctions between them are similar, that you have a variety of things that you see in the dream, but the consciousness of seeingness, it remains the same. Then another very good point that Swami Mahesharanji pointed out, I have not seen that in elsewhere. He said somebody can raise this objection. How can you say that the samvit in Jagrat Avastha is the same as in Swapnavastha? See, you can say that just like in Jagrat Avastha, you have one samvit that takes into account all of the things that are known. Similarly, you can say that in the Swapnavastha, you have one samvit that takes into account all the differences in the Swapnavastha. But maybe the Jagrat Avastha samvit is different from the Swapnavastha samvit. How can you now assume they are the same? So the answer to that is, happy that you asked me that question. Congratulations, wonderful. This is how the good question should be. The fact of the matter is that there is not a separate samvit. Because, why not? Because in the if it was a separate samvit, in the Swapnavastha, in the dream state, you will say, oh, I am seeing it differently. I am seeing it differently, but you don't. You see it exactly the same way. You see it exactly the same way. And you don't, okay, that's one thing. Because in fact, when you wake up, only then you can say that the Swapnavastha was like a dream. It just appeared and it went away. Only when you came out of it, you make some distinctions. And what distinctions? That is the sthirata. That is the how it is sthiram. That will come to in a minute. But I'm actually just giving you the logic that the samvit in Swapna and the Jagrat are exactly the same. And another thing will be that if the samvit in the Swapnavastha was different, you could not recall anything, because that's a completely different person altogether. You say, what are you talking about? That was not me. That was some other samvit. No. There's only one samvit. Only one samvit. And in fact, in the next verse, when the deep sleep state comes, exactly the same situation will occur. There's only one samvit in all of your experiences. We have only done 2/3 of it, but assuming that the deep sleep will also come along the same, which it will, all of your experiences are overlay upon this samvit, same samvit. And I remember, one of the things that I used to think about quite early when I started to learn from Swami Dayanandji, that it really sort of became clear to me that when there are two people, I reason to myself that the two, no one actually told me this specifically. It is one of those things that I just added my own insight to it, and which is true. When there are multiple people involved, I reason to myself that the samvit for me and the samvit for the other must be the same. Why? Why can it not be different? Because we'll be at a totally different level of appearance, little different of experience, different level of consciousness. But in all of our transactions may be different. That's a different thing. From my standpoint, it's you. From your standpoint, it's me. That's all different. But our communication, our interaction are all on the same wavelength. You know, sometimes you have people say, especially when they like someone. Someone just told me this recently. It was a kind of like someone said, you and I are on the same wavelength, which is a technical term, but what it means is we think alike. We think alike. Anyway, you can extend this totally, that really speaking, the sounds and the forms and the interactions, not only with human beings, with all beings, is based on the same samvit. This fly that was trying to escape from me had the same samvit. He was saying, oh my God, is this going to kill me or what? And same samvit. And so at least we have now gone into from Jagrata Avastha to Swapna. So one more thing and then I will stop and just distribute the books. So one small thing which is also a Vedantic concept, if you want to make a separate list of things that are important Vedantic concept, that we do not accept any premise in Vedanta unless there is a proof. This is what is called pramana siddham. Pramana siddham means there must be a proof. No knowledge is possible without a proof. You can say, for example, that I saw that person. Are you sure? Yes, I saw that. My eyes. That means you totally trust your eyes. Totally trust your eyes. It's called pramana. So similarly, between Swapnavastha and Jagrata Avastha, it is the same, and there is no pramana that is different. You cannot have a pramana that is different. Otherwise, you will say, I know this is different, this samvit is different, this samvit is different. There is no such pramana. And in fact, all the pramanas are based on the similarity of the two. So it's the same samvit. Okay, so the only thing that remains to be seen is this word called sthiram. So now we can say that the author Swami Vidyaranya says that the only distinction between the two states is that in the Swapnavastha, the Vedyam Vastu, the things that are not that are seen, are not lasting, and the ones in Jagrata Avastha, they are lasting. Okay, so here Swami Maheshananji analyzes this point very well. So he says, here's the meaning of this. He says, it is not that it is long-lasting versus short-lasting. He says that's not the meaning of the word sthiram, as it appears to be. Why not? Because there are things in Jagrata Avastha that don't last. They are at least, in fact, you can have just the opposite impression. You know, there are sometimes you have nightmares that keep going on and on. You want it to go, but it doesn't go. That is very sthiram. And here you have some some very precious thing, you just got it and you dropped it. It's broken. It is asthiram. So he says that's not the distinction. Not that. So what is the distinction? What is meant by sthiram? He says the sthiram and asthiram is that when you have the cognition of something which is based on your thinking and cognition of that vastu and has no presence outside of that, that is called asthiram. Whereas, if a thing has some reality, whether or not you think about it, that is called sthiram. So similarly, what happens is that you think about some person, and then that becomes your dream, or some situation that becomes your dream, and it's pleasant, unpleasant, whatever. It depends upon your past karmas and whatever. But then, as soon as that thought is gone, that person also disappears. It's called asthiram, like a bubble in the water. Whereas in the Jagrata Avastha, whether or not that person you think about it is not there, sometimes you don't want to think about the person. But that person is still there. Still there. That is the distinction between sthiram and asthiram. Anyway, so now those two states of experiences are over, and then we will finish the Swapnavastha next time, and then we will extend it further in other things. But the lingam has been established, that the way to look at yourself, to look at your own reality, is to make a distinction between is something changeable or not. Has something, and in fact, another thing is that anything that has a form has to be changeable. Only the formless cannot change. So this is the start of the Tattva Viveka, and it is done from the very first verse itself, and it will then be expanded. It's kind of like a villager who says, okay, I know exactly it went in this direction. Now I have to get it, but at least I've made the right directional choice. So similarly here also, the distinction between aropita and anaropita vastu is the very basis of my thinking, of my lingam. And now I explore further to see. To explore further means that one's doubts are still there. How can it be? How can I be formless, this, that, or the other? All those things will then take up, but this is the beginning, and a very solid beginning of the first verse, third verse rather. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, so we can shut this off. We don't need it anymore. All right. I think so. I think so.